taking a hit from UK censors, a court battle with the Howdy Doody show, and a very real negative impact on our ecosystem. You won't believe the truth behind the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Turtles made their first appearance in May 1984 in the pages of their self-titled comic. Co-creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird self-published their Reptilian romp under the banner of Mirage Studios, a name they reportedly chose because they had no actual publishing company. When the Turtles' popularity began to boom alongside the release of their first cartoon in 1987, Archie Comics launched their own comic book series, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, to capitalize on the show's success. The Turtles' original Mirage series ran for 2 volumes. A third volume, which was brutal, violent, and largely considered by fans to be non-canon, was published under Image Comics in 1996. The series returned to the Mirage fold for Volume 4, which ran from 2001 to 2014. A tie-in comic to the 2003 TV series was published by Dreamwave, which only lasted for 7 issues. IDW Publishing has also been putting out a TMNT comic since 2011, which has had more than 250 issues to date. Aside from their ongoing series, the Turtles have also made crossover appearances in comics published by Dark Horse, Boom Studios, and DC. However, the Turtles have yet to officially appear in the Marvel Universe, which is ironic considering how their very first story was written in a way that tied into the origin of the hero of Hell's Kitchen himself, Daredevil. Any TMNT fan is familiar with their origin story. 4 turtles in the New York sewers end up in the care of Splinter, a martial arts expert who is also a rat. When a canister of radioactive ooze falls into the sewers, transforming the turtles and their master, the newly mutated ninja warrior names his 4 adopted sons after Renaissance artists and teaches them how to fight. However, there have been at least 2 significant occasions where the crime-fighting quartet welcomed a 5th mutant turtle to their team, and in both instances, that new member was a girl. The 1997 TV show Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation introduced a major change to the TMT mythos in the form of Venus de Milo, the 5th turtle. Venus apparently mutated alongside the other 4, but was adopted and raised by a Chinese shinobi master. She wore a braided light blue mask and was a skilled magic practitioner. She didn't quite catch on. In fact, legend has it that Peter Laird hated her with such a passion that he banned her from appearing in any future turtle adaptations. About 2 decades later, a 5th turtle would join the group once again, but this time a little differently. First appearing in 2015's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 51, the IDW series introduced Janika, a former assassin who was mutated into a turtle when Leonardo and Donatello gave her an emergency blood transfusion to save her life. She wears a yellow bandana and uses a pair of claws evocative of the Marvel hero Wolverine. The Turtles successfully took the pop culture world by storm in the 90s, but that doesn't mean the franchise didn't have to make some compromises along the way. One of the most infamous examples in the retitling of the series and the replacement of one of the lead's signature weapons in order to make it past censors in the United Kingdom. Throughout the 80s and 90s, the British government was particularly iffy about portrayals of violence in various forms of media. For some reason, the idea of the ninja, a stealthy assassin from halfway across the globe, just didn't sit right with UK censors. That was why in the UK and other European countries, they were known as the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. The show's name wasn't the only adjustment that TMNT, or TMHT, had to make for British audiences though. UK censors also weren't too keen on Michelangelo's nunchucks, weapons strongly associated with ninjas. Therefore, Michelangelo's main weapon in the cartoon was changed to become a grappling hook. This censorship rule also necessitated a rather odd edit in the 1991 movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. Censors mandated that a scene showing Michelangelo swinging sausage links as makeshift weapons be cut from the final film. An amusing note from the censors read, "Reduced to minimum dazzling display of swinging sausages indistinguishable from chain sticks."
And next time I'll use mustard!
When the Ninja Turtles first jumped onto the scene, it seemed like the franchise could do no wrong. The cartoon was a massive hit. The movies made fans happy, and toy sales were off the charts. That's likely what brought about the idea of a live concert tour sponsored and promoted by Pizza Hut. In 1990, the Coming Out of Our Shells tour featured the 4 turtles trading in their ninja weapons for musical instruments. Leonardo was on the bass guitar, Raphael was on the drums, Donatello was the keyboardist, and Michelangelo was the guitarist and lead singer. An actual band, dressed up in infamously bad TMNT costumes with denim vests, went on a year-long tour across the United States, performing original songs on stage. Their first performance was a live pay-per-view broadcast from Radio City Music Hall in New York. The central story of the musical tour revolved around the Turtles' nemesis, the Shredder, and his plan to steal the world's music. Needless to say, the Coming Out of Our Shells tour certainly wasn't a highlight of the TMNT fandom, even though it was successful enough to merit a smaller follow-up tour in 1992. Most people know Chuck Lorre for his work on popular sitcoms such as Roseanne, 2.5 Men, and The Big Bang Theory. However, one of the lesser-known accomplishments of the king of sitcoms was a major contribution to TMNT's popularity. He wrote the iconic theme song from the 1987 cartoon. In an interview with IndieWire, Lorre shared how 3 decades ago he and his co-writer Dennis Brown were faced with an incredibly short turnaround time for the song, saying, "We wrote it in an afternoon and we recorded it in an evening." At the time, Lorre was trying to kickstart his career by writing songs and scripts for TV shows and was particularly interested in the Turtles gig. Someone else got the job at first, but when they didn't complete the task on time, the production team had no choice but to contact Lorre and give him the assignment on a tight 48-hour timeline. Lorre and Brown read the Mirage comics for inspiration, then made the most out of their meager $2,000 budget by booking a studio in Los Angeles from midnight until 8 a.m. Lorre also revealed that originally, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon was only going to last for 6 episodes. He said of the show's lasting legacy, "The fact that the song still means anything to anyone anywhere is just wonderful. It's become this phenomenon I'm very proud to be attached to." The worldwide popularity of the TMNT franchise has allowed for some truly diverse interpretations of the characters. Perhaps one of the best examples was the Japanese animated special Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Legend of the Super Mutants, also known as Mutant Turtles: Superman Legend. This 2-part direct-to-video original video animation was released in 1996 and was created as a companion cartoon to the Metal Mutant and Super Mutant action figures. The limited series also brought back some of the voice actors from the Japanese dub of the 1987 cartoon. Legend of the Super Mutants sees the 4 turtles gaining the ability to transform into armored super turtles through the use of mystical gems called Mutastones. Their evil counterparts, the Shredder, Krang, Bebop, and Rocksteady, could also transform using the Mutastones, with Shredder in particular having a striking dragon-like alternate form. Further strengthening the comparisons between Legend of the Super Mutants, it also borrows from Tokusatsu's troops by allowing the Super Turtles to merge into a stronger entity called the Turtle Saint. The second part was even more bizarre, depicting the 4 turtles as having the power to shift into elemental animal forms through the use of mystical suits of armor called Metal Beasts. The cover of Marvel's Captain America Comics #1 features the Sentinel of Liberty punching Adolf Hitler in the face, a powerful image that immediately tells the reader who Steve Rogers is and what he stands for. Interestingly enough, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle had a similar encounter in the comics, one that, in the Turtles' reality, actually helped put an end to the Second World War. In issue number 64 of Archie Comics' Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, the future versions of Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael use a time-slip generator to go back to the past and stop a human brain in a robot suit from wreaking havoc. They land in Nazi Germany, where they learn that the brain powering their robot adversary belonged to the Mad Tyrant himself. A scuffle quickly ensues, during which the one-eyed future Raph gets the opportunity to deck the dictator in the dome. Upon retrieving the brain, the Turtles quickly open up a portal to their own time, but not before convincing Hitler that they're actually brain-snatching demons. In a vain attempt to foil their plans, Hitler responds by promptly pulling out a Luger and blowing his brains out. Ask any longtime fan of TMNT to tell you a single word that they connect with the series, and there's a good chance they'll respond with one particular iconic catchphrase.
Cowabunga! Cowabunga! Cowabunga!
A nonsensical term coined by Buffalo Bob Smith for the Howdy Doody Show in 1949, surfers began to popularize the phrase in the 1960s. There's no doubt, however, that the Turtles' use of Cowabunga helped cement the term's popularity in the eyes and mouths of the general public. According to David Wise, head writer of the 1987 TMNT series, he wrote Cowabunga into Michelangelo's dialogue to give him some added character. But when the party-loving reptile uttered the phrase in the pilot episode, it just clicked, and Cowabunga became the Turtles' battle cry. However, this prompted Buffalo Bob to sue Eastman and Laird for their use of the term he invented. They eventually settled out of court for $50,000, but due to its enduring popularity in the TMNT mythos, the phrase continues to pop up in different on-screen incarnations of the team. The most popular species of pet turtle in the world is arguably the red-eared slider. Their cheap price and availability made them easily obtainable in the US until 1975, when concerns about salmonella negatively impacted the turtle trade. However, less than 2 decades later, the demand for pet turtles soared anew because of the TMNT phenomenon and worsened a major invasive species problem that continues to plague the world's ecosystem to this very day. Based on reports cited by the U.S. Geological Survey, there is indeed a direct connection between the TMNT television cartoon craze, as they called it, and the sudden boom in red-eared slidered populations worldwide. U.S. turtle exports from 1989 to 1997 experienced a staggering 257% increase as thousands of children across the world begged their parents for their very own turtle pets at home. There was a problem though. When young pet owners often decided that they no longer wanted the responsibility of caring for their turtles, they would release them into nearby lakes or rivers. Unfortunately, red-eared sliders are infamous not just for their tendency to carry disease, but also for being bigger and more competitive than many native turtle species. When an invasive species is introduced into a new environment, it usually spells doom for other species in the ecosystem. In fact, invasive species are the second greatest driver of biodiversity loss worldwide. The seeds of the TMNT franchise were planted in 1983 thanks to a random illustration that Kevin Eastman sketched while he was staying at Peter Laird's place. At the time, they were working on a different comic, but the ridiculousness of Eastman's doodle, a turtle wearing a bandana and standing on 2 legs with a pair of nunchucks strapped to his arms, made them reconsider their priorities. While the other turtles would come to fruition soon after, it was Michelangelo that started it all. Michelangelo is often portrayed across various media adaptations as the least serious among the turtles, the comic relief that balances out Leonardo's stoicism, Raphael's ill temper, and Donatello's awkward nerdiness. In most iterations, he's also the least skilled fighter, despite his tremendous unrealized potential. Perhaps that's why Eastman and Laird thought it would be appropriate for him to be the lone surviving turtle in a dystopian future story that they've been planning since 1987. The 2020 comic series TMNT The Last Ronin features a much older Michelangelo on a mission to avenge his brothers after they were killed by descendants of the Shredder. Armed with his brother's weapons, this Michelangelo is violent, fearless, and determined to take out the Foot Clan once and for all. There's something very unsettling about seeing the class clown in a different, more brutal light. Aside from serving as a love letter to the various versions of the TMNT, the 2009 animated film Turtles Forever made one thing clear. In every universe that has the Turtles, there's an iteration of the villainous Shredder to serve as their foil. However, this wasn't always meant to be the case if the first ever TMT story is any indication. In their 1984 debut, the Turtles faced off against the Shredder, also known as Oroku Saki, in a rooftop battle that ended in his off-screen death. Sometime later, the villain returned to pester the Turtles anew, resurrected by the Foot Clan. In a final showdown, Leonardo managed to cut off the Shredder's head, seemingly killing him for good. But the Shredder's specter would continue to haunt the brothers, however, with Raphael even adopting the villain's mantle at one point. Of course, in virtually every other incarnation of the Turtles, the Shredder has been portrayed as their main antagonist. Nowadays, many recognize the Shredder as the yin to the Turtles' yang, like the Joker to Batman or Lex Luthor to Superman. Not too bad for a guy named after an office machine and covered with glorified cheese graters. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite turtles are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.